packing begins. 3 puzzle trucks, lots of Martin Motors cars, all wrapped up individually except for the bare wood. Some of them should be okay if they're unwrapped, but this is 3 of 5 boxes so far, just to give you an idea. Casualty of moving. This was a lesson learned the hard way. Don't press down too hard on the boxes you're packing. Something might not be too strong in there. Anyway, this plane isn't going to make it to the show. Okay, Susie's car is packed up. She leaves this morning for the show, and we had to get everything we could in this one because the other car will leave with all the toys and supplies and stuff like that. So we packed her car up. She's leaving here at 9 o'clock in the morning. Show isn't until tomorrow, but bless her heart, she has to go to LA today and do a patient, and then she's going to Lemoore and do some work, and then we'll be meeting up tonight sometime and hopefully set up probably between 11 and 12, and the show starts tomorrow. Well folks, this looks like our home for the next couple days. We found our name on the curb, so here we are. We're in Kingsburg for the Swedish festival. There's Susie pointing at our space. We're right in front of the Chamber of Commerce. Our space doesn't look like much yet, does it? But it's about 11 o'clock at night, and we're here to set up for the craft show. Well, we're at the show. This is our setup, and we're featuring Susie's Swedish weaving. So here it is. There she is with one of her patterns. And then we set up a little play table down here. Kids are having a ball with this. They can run the cars around and feel what they feel like and all that stuff. This is our table for the mini contractors. They're all right here. It's really hard to see, so I hope you can see it. They're sitting here so they can be played with. And then over in this corner is our other table for the Martin Motors and the cars. We have everything here basically, and then we put in the townhouse and some of its things, and this is a table of odds and ends that we produce. I like this. This is our mini Fat Boys Play Pals. These are special here because they're made from wood planking. So these are kind of neat. And then the Play Pals, they all come from scrap. And we've been making them just for fun. Again, you can see the mini contractor set. There's the pink set. There's the green and yellow set. And the red and black set. As you can see out from the booth, we're on the street waiting for the parade to start. This is kind of a neat festival. We're standing out in the middle of the street. This is the other side from us. There's booths set up all along, and you see people sitting. They're waiting for the parade to start. There'll be a parade going right down the middle of the street, and then the festivities will start on the street in a little bit. So again, this is just a little bit about where we are. This is our booth and a couple booths next to us. We looks a little different from last night, but again, this is what we have. I hope you can see some of this because the patterns, it's hard to see. I can't see what I'm filming, but anyway, again, this area is attracting an awful lot of attention. We set it up so kids could play and run the cars around here. Kids are having a ball with touching and playing with stuff. Just keeps us on our toes. Okay. Okay, let's do it again from the other side just to see how it works. Okay, now, and it ends up in the sandbox. That's way cool, dude. Hello, folks. My name's Ken Martin. This is my lovely bride, Susie. We've been asked to talk a little bit about doing craft shows and marketing and sales and that type of thing. We just came back from a big craft show, so we want to share with you some of our ideas and see what you think. A little bit about Susie and I. I've been in marketing in one form or another all my life. We started a janitorial service and built it up pretty well. We did all the sales and marketing for the truck driving industry when I was a truck driver. Also ran an ice cream store from scratch, knowing nothing about ice cream, and built it up 4 times what it was. And we've done things like that all along most of our lives.
And I call that part BS, before Susie.
Susie and I met and we got together and we started a limousine service, and together we marketed it from a one-car operation to a nationally known service that actually won Operator of the Year as the best limousine service in the country over 10,000 other operators. So we come from a little bit of marketing, but marketing toys, it's a whole new ballgame, and most of what we know is pretty much common knowledge. We just want to reinforce what you probably already know.
I'm a nurse, and I have marketed for nursing agencies through the last 20 years. We were invited to come to this craft show because of my specialty, which is Swedish weaving. Swedish weaving is an old art form of embroidery, and on the back there is nothing unlike traditional embroidery. Everything is done on the surface. Because of this art, we were able to enter the Swedish festival without an entrance fee, which made it a lot more affordable for us. But one of the requirements was that we needed to decorate our booth and we needed to wear costumes.
The setup is more consuming than people realize. Oftentimes we didn't. We've been to a couple craft shows, this being our 3rd, I think. But we had to go out and buy tables. Of course, you have to have a tent that you can be under because you're going to be out in the sun. We had to buy electronics, marketing for our credit cards. You've got to be able to take credit cards. A number of things that came up.
We found the iPad to be very helpful with an app called Square, and Square has just a little attachment that goes in the microphone portion, and we were able to swipe cards or manually enter them that way so that we could accept credit cards for our sales. Most of our sales were cash, but this gave us the ability to be versatile.
And being versatile sometimes freaks Susie out because I'll make special offers along the way. And one of the things we did is we went along and we thought if somebody wanted to order at the show, we'd include shipping so that we could take an order. It only worked once, but it worked, and so we have an order coming home that we had to make a product and he wanted customized, and we took his credit card and we'll ship it free when it's done. But on the other hand, getting ready for the show, Susie reminded me about 3 weeks before the show that we needed some new stock for our show this time. So I started day and night making toys, and I'm not the fastest in the world, so in the 3 weeks before the show I made 120 new toys. And Susie was working feverishly on her Swedish weaving.
I completed about 16 sets of towels in addition to the stock I already had on hand.
So we ended up with quite a stock, we thought, to go to the show. Then we have to decide how we're going to get there and everything that we're going to do. So one of the things was packing. I didn't think much about it until we started. How do you get everything to a show and keep it in good shape? So we ended up packing 7 boxes of toys, wrapping almost every one so that they would stay nice so we didn't show up at the show with dinged up paint jobs. Then we had to pack the cars, of course, and Susie, bless her heart, was leaving Friday morning to go to LA to do some work, and then she had to go to Lemoore, and then she was going to Kingsburg. I was leaving, on the other hand, Friday evening because I still had a lot of work to do here, packing and everything. So we loaded up her car and we packed it with everything in the world we thought we might need other than the toys. And she was so jammed in she could hardly move in her car. But bless her heart, she made it to the show about 7 in the evening, and she was able to scope out some of the area so we knew what we were facing.
We looked at parking, we found our spot, we looked at what available facilities they had nearby, and one of the advantages to this show was they allowed us to assemble our tent the night before. We couldn't put product out, but we were able to decorate our booth and have all the tables set up, and there was a police officer assigned to patrol the area all night long, so we felt very secure about our belongings.
So I left about 7 o'clock on Friday evening, and the show was, like I said, in Kingsburg, which was a 3-hour drive, 3+. So I ended up getting there about 10:30. Rested just for a few minutes, and then Susie and I went to the site to set up our table and tent and shelves and decorations, and we were able to get that done by about 12:30 a.m. We went home and crashed.
At the motel.
At the motel. I'm sorry, home. At the motel. Then we had to be set up in the morning at 7 o'clock. We had a window of 7 to 9 to get the booth set and ready. Cars had to be off the street because they were going to have a parade.
So we got there bright and early, which was an advantage because it was a warm day. We were able to complete this work in the cooler hours of the day. And then we were able to move our cars and park them nearby. One of the things that we found was it took a little bit longer to set up than we realized because the crowds had already started to assemble and they stopped and were shopping already. We actually made our first sale prior to the opening of the festival.
So that's a little bit about the setup. Next we'll talk about the festival itself and how it went.
Another advantage we had at this show was because we were highlighting a Swedish weaving or a Swedish item, we were given a pretty good spot right near the center stage and the judging area. So people congregated all around our booth.
We had, there's a photo that shows of people around our booth, and I think you might get to see it later. In that photo, we were able to identify 4 future customers. That's how valuable having people around the booth we found was. So having people there was a big help, and being friendly was a big help, as we'll talk about later. But right away, you have children wanting to play with the toys. So that's one of the things that we had done earlier. We set up a table for them, a short table about a foot off the ground, put a covering on it, and toys that they were allowed to play with. So even during the parade, we had children playing at our booth, which, you know, parents are watching, they're seeing what they're playing with, and they ended up, the kids that played the most at the little table, parents ended up buying. So the time before the show, because we were ready, we did well. And the parade was a big draw to this festival.
We enjoyed the parade as well, and when we saw vehicles that were similar to some toys that Ken had made, we actually ran out into the street and took a photo with the vehicle behind our toy. And with one school bus, it was a huge hit. The driver loved it.
So it's all a part of having fun. When you're having fun, people notice, and people want to be a part of that. So we did some cute little things as we went along, and we'll talk about them in the next section.
So one thing that's very important in a craft show is that you want to engage people. So you don't want to be sitting back working a puzzle or playing a game or something. You really want to be attentive. You have to keep your eye out all around as well to make sure someone doesn't walk off with your product. But to engage people, you want to start a conversation. You want to get them involved.
We had a couple tools that we like to use for that. Some of our Play Pals and our mini, I don't know if you can see this little car. I really liked using this because I could hand it to a customer and ask them, if the wood has not been stained or painted, how did we get the bottom half dark? So now I've got the toy in their hand and they're debating how we did that. So it's very good to, as a conversation piece, it gets people started, and the best rule about sales ever is to get the product in their hand. So we did that quite a bit. We also had a fun tool that we used. I don't have it here, but there's a photo of it. Hopefully you'll see it later. Yudi had sent me a set of training chopsticks. It's a real cute little set of chopsticks he glued to a clothespin. And so I would hold that up, and if people weren't talking, I'd ask them, what do you think this is? And we got all kinds of answers. But it made people laugh, and they thought we were nice, and once they think you're nice, it's much easier to sell them. So that's part of, we just engage people. If they even look our way, we start talking.
One of the things that we found to be very helpful was by engaging people in conversation. Some people want to talk, and we heard a lot of stories about families owning heirloom pieces or vintage pieces of Swedish weaving. We heard a lot of stories. Oh, my grandfather used to make toys like this. Those types of stories. And one elderly gentleman hung around for quite some time. He was even visiting, we saw him visiting other booths, talking for 30 minutes or more with different booths, but never buying anything. But I engaged him in conversation, even though it was at the end of the show, the parade was over, people were packing up, but I gave him my attention, and he actually made a purchase.
Which was very nice. And we have talked several times on the forum and in different places about my habit of carrying a toy with me, and we do like to do that. So we went off several times to visit other booths, and one of the things that we always did, excuse me for a moment, was carry a toy in my hand. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but we have some toys on the table that were rubber band together so that I could go out and carry them and not worry about one piece falling off another. And as I walked up to people, of course, you could see their eyes engaged in the toy, and it was very interesting. It created conversation, and then I was able to give them a card. So that's one of the things we did outside the booth to engage other people. And because we did that and we were very showy, Susie's Swedish weaving was a very beautiful display up front in the booth because we were featuring her. We had a lady walk across the street just for that. Susie's it's very beautiful work, and she came over to shop for her mom, and her mom was one of these old-time ladies that would not spend extra money on extra things that weren't really needed. So her daughter was there buying a set of towels for her mom. It was really cute. So we enjoyed that and learned good lessons about talking to people, sharing, having fun.
Now we're going to talk about breakdown. I nearly had a breakdown by the end of that very long day. So Ken did a lot of the physical labor, but we had to take down the booth, all the tables, pack up the remaining product, which there was quite a bit that we didn't have to pack up as a result of our sales.
So I wanted Susie to rest because she was worn out, so we're packing and getting ready to go, and wouldn't you know, several people come up and want to ask. The display's a mess, but they're still asking about toys, so we're still engaging people as we pack and get ready to go. And one thing you'll notice as you go to these shows, if you watch the booths go up and go down, you can always tell the beginners like us because we're the last one set up and the last one gone. And the other thing you'll learn, just because you get it all packed up and in the car, your work is not over. So we were just exhausted, I'll be honest with you, after half a night and a day of doing this and getting ready for 3 weeks. So we were desperate to go get something to eat, so we went to Denny's and walked in, and Susie said to the hostess right away, "We'd like a room for two at Denny's." Needless to say, we got some interesting looks, but made everybody laugh, and of course we're carrying toys, so you know, it worked out. People started asking us about things. So then we get back to the hotel. We just crashed that night. I left early the next day and came home. Susie went on to Bakersfield to do a patient the next day, so I didn't get to see her until the next day. So again, it's a lot of effort that goes into it, but you have to keep in mind there's one photo that you'll get to see of a child trying to eat one of our green toys, an infant. That photo says it all. That's why you do it. So we had a good time and we learned a lot. We'll talk in a minute about some things we learned to do and some things we learned not to do.
One thing about breakdown is you don't want to break down too early. Don't be the first one out of there. And the second rule is make sure you leave your spot better than the way you found it. You want to make a good impression on the people who have hosted you. And I must say, we were treated very hospitably by the city, and we're grateful for that. So we certainly wouldn't want to leave trash laying about or to leave the place a mess. So we tried to clean it up as if we had never been there.
And the other thing we did, before we left, we went and thanked the show hostess, and we talked to them what a great show they put on. And I actually went into the Chamber of Commerce and congratulated them, because this was a Chamber of Commerce event. And it's important that they get to, somebody says that to them, I think. And of course, we left them business cards, and they asked for some input back to the newspaper about the show, if we'd be willing to do that. So in the end, our name will come up again as we write this article for the newspaper. So that was a plus, and it was all done late in the day when we were just dead tired. So it's always, you've got to keep your head about you, and you've got to go on making the effort and smiling. It's important.
We also thanked the police officer who patrolled the streets the night before. We thanked the people who were doing cleanup, taking the recycling and the trash off the streets. We tried to show our appreciation to everyone that extended their hand to us. So just as a short recap of some of the things that we learned. Number one, be engaging with your potential client. Everyone you see is a client, whether they're a little toddler or whether they are an elderly person.
Along that point, we had a child that picked up one of the Play Pals, which was our second bestseller. The mini construction set was actually our first seller because we had the PlayStation out, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But he found a way to play with that toy that was unusual, and he was putting it in our display and letting it run down the display and ended up in the sand pile. So it was kind of interesting, a little nerve-wracking because it was going nose first into the sand, but we took videos of that young man playing with the toy and figuring out how to do it, and his dad was watching, and they ended up buying a set of the mini contractors. So be engaging on everything you do.
Another thing is that color sells. You want to have a very colorful display. Children are attracted by the color. We found that parents are sometimes looking for that old-fashioned look, and they like the unpainted and they think it's safer, but the child is attracted to the color.
And when that conversation starts between parent and child, it's kind of interesting because the child is drawn to the color, and he might say something like, "I want this yellow one, Mommy." And Mommy says, "Wouldn't you like this plain wooden one better?" And the child says, "I said," and you know who's going to win that argument in the end, 9 times out of 10. So that was something we learned. Another part of the color thing, for someone that liked natural wood, our burning techniques that Cynthia has a video on can teach you how to do that. We had a car carrier that had 2 cars burnt almost black. Wheels were burnt. So we had a natural set of this wood, but we had color in it as well. That set was bought by a couple that was sending it all the way back to Kansas, and she wanted it signed and she wants to send us photos of the child with the toy when she gets it. So again, color attracts.
We also found that having a play table for the children at their level, short, right at their eye level where they can reach, and with toys that they were allowed to play with. That was a huge draw. That brought kids there and they stayed longer, which ultimately sold the parents.
You can see the mini contractor set. There's the pink set. There's the green and yellow set. And the red and black set. As you can see out from the booth, we're on the street waiting for the parade to start. This is kind of a neat festival.